Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And what's interesting is I've been taking care of some family the last few days, and I've had the time to sit back and just watch things unfold. And it's almost comical to me at this point because, for over a year, I don't know how many videos I did explaining everything that was going to take place, in my humble opinion, doing my Paviswamie thing. And in that scenario, it always started with Brian Kohberger filing post-conviction relief. Everybody out there thought I was crazy when I would say it over and over. He's not going to file, there's no filing. Then when he files, the whole world just comes apart. Oh my goodness, he filed. Well, it can't go anywhere. But I've laid out a plan. I've called it their 4D chess plan all along. Most people disagree with me on that, including the players that play in that 4D chess game. But the scenario that I laid out is pretty simple, and it goes in little stages, and I'll be darned if I don't sit back and I watch those little stages happening before my very eyes. And let me remind you of what the plan is, and then we'll get into what I believe is going to take place from here and throw in a little extra in there on some of the scenarios that I have painted the picture of, like Cy Ray's part, for example, and how it's already worked in my humble opinion. Hold on to your hats, folks. This one's going to be interesting. Okay, remember what I laid out in the 3D chess plan, right? The first step that I said for over a year would happen. BK will file for post-conviction relief. Threw the entire world on its ear when it happened, and it surprised everybody but us. So he files for post-conviction relief. First thing we hear from everybody is, it will go nowhere. This is just a failed attempt. BK's just, what do they say? He's bored in prison. Until step number 2 of this attempt all of a sudden becomes a reality, and that is the Hippler appointed a post-conviction relief attorney. You see, Hippler could have taken Kohberger's written statement and then ruled on what's called a summary judgment and just overruled it and threw it out altogether, but that's not what happened. Hippler's actually frozen discovery for people trying to do FOIA requests, and he has assigned a attorney for his post-conviction relief proceedings. Now, it doesn't matter the attorney that's assigned to him because a good 4D chess game has already been thought out in every possible way, meaning they have everything already to present to his new post-conviction relief attorney so that he could be a walking, talking monkey, and he just is going to file what they tell him to continue this process. He's a temporary player in this thing. But the fact that Hippler has appointed a post-conviction relief attorney to Kohberger's case is already a feather in the cap for the entire process, because most people suggested that that wouldn't even take place. And we know that it has. And it's Gregory Roche, who is not a very good attorney. You can look up his record. I've seen him in so many of the cases for people around this. You would be very surprised. I may go through and show you who all he's represented. He's represented many. Don't know of any post-conviction relief cases that he's ever won, but it doesn't matter because it's part of this process of 4D chess.
Do you have any concerns about him? He's now claiming he's innocent. He just got a lawyer. He's been appointed a lawyer officially, which is kind of interesting. It's a public defender in Idaho, and I was looking into him. He's from Moscow, Idaho, which is actually where the murders happened. And this lawyer has worked on cases with Brian Kohberger's other lawyer from the trial, Ann Taylor, which is just, I guess it's a small, pool of people, but I thought that was kind of interesting. But
now, what is the next stage in this thing? Well, attorney and BK should file an additional provision for state of mind during the time he accepted the plea deal with considerations of diagnosed mental disorders. And because, like I mentioned, Yoli pointed out that the judge during his colloquy did not go through and specifically ask about Kohberger's mental state due to his disorders that were diagnosed, he left a major hole in the entire process. So if I'm correct, an amended statement will be filed by this new post-conviction relief attorney addressing this provision. Let's see if I'm right on that going forward. I suggest that I probably am. The next step, though, is the judge, after hearing that, will grant an evidentiary hearing. That is the whole purpose of all this, is to get Hippler to grant an evidentiary hearing. As soon as we hear that he has set a date for an evidentiary hearing, you can pretty much guarantee this thing is over before it started. Now, why is that? Because during the evidentiary hearing, I predict that Ann Taylor, Brian Kohberger's attorney, will admit to ineffective assistance of counsel, and in doing so will fall on her own sword for Brian Kohberger.
I think we're going to see it in the next 60 to 90 days, and will absolutely fall on her sword for BK. She is a true believer.
Now, that will be enough to almost get this thing overturned. But if you remember, I said there was one more thing that had to happen, and that's outside public pressure. And that outside public pressure could only come from one place. And that is the families of the victims demanding the judge accept Brian Kohberger's post-conviction relief and set a trial date. And that's where everybody wanted to hate on Cy Ray. But I suggested something else, and I've seen it happen now in real time. Before Cy Ray stepped in and began having these conversations publicly and had them publicly with the G's, the G's did many, many interviews, all saying the same thing. They did not want the state to accept Brian Kohberger's post-conviction relief. They didn't want to cost Idahoans any more money because they had already cost them so much.
You said you wanted this to go to trial, as do I. Do you still feel the same way, Christy and Steve?
I do. I mean, I would love, because I think that it would just stop so much of these people just running their mouths in this conspiracy theory. At this point, with this much time gone by, I mean, I'd have to, put myself in that state of mind again, which is not an easy state of mind to put yourself in.
But after Cy Ray stepped in and gave them the confidence that they were looking for.
Yeah, and 100%, like, I'll make myself available to the family, by the way, 24/7. Like, if you guys have follow-up questions going forward, by all means. When I heard that you guys wanted to have this conversation, I actually, it meant a lot to me. And I was like, oh, finally, I can talk.
Well, now we have them going on national TV demanding a new trial and the death penalty. So if I'm correct in my assumption of what Cy Ray's role was, let me tell you, he played it masterfully, and it worked faster than I could possibly imagine.
We're joined now by Kaylee Gonsalves' family, her parents, Christy and Steve, and her sister Aubrey is with us this morning as well. Welcome back. Well, Steve, the last time we chatted here on the show, I recall you expressing some frustration that the case never went to trial. Now, of course, the same week that this documentary comes out, he tries to change his plea. Would you like to see a trial? Would you actually like to see this go to trial this time around?
That's never changed. I've been consistent through and through. The evidence was there. I want to honor all the work that the agents did, and I think it should have stood. We need to make case law. Idaho had a chance. We spent $8 million. We really were in a perfect position to put our foot down and say we're not going to allow this to happen in our state, and I would have liked to see that happen.
With that public pressure, the PCR will be granted. New trial will be back on with the death penalty. When that happens, everybody's worried about this new public defender. He goes away. His only role here is for the post-conviction relief process. Once it gets back to trial status, he is no longer on the case. My prediction is they will revisit Kohberger's other two attorneys And since they have already worked the case the entire time, are familiar with the case file, they will reappoint those two as attorneys, along with what I believe will happen will be a independent attorney will take the case, and it'll be a heavy hitter as the new lead counsel. That is what I'm predicting. And so far, my predictions are lining up so perfect, I couldn't even possibly predict them any better. Let me know your thoughts.
She believes he's innocent.
Now, this is the best way that I can describe what the post-conviction relief attorney, Gregory Roche, and what his role is in this 4D chess game.
Do you have any concerns about him? He's now claiming he's innocent. He just got a lawyer. He's been appointed a lawyer officially, which is kind of interesting. It's a public defender in Idaho, and I was looking into him. He's from Moscow, Idaho, which is actually where the murders happened. And this lawyer has worked on cases with Brian Kohberger's other lawyer from the trial, Ann Taylor, which is just, I guess it's a small, pool of people, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
And there's a movie, and I know this is not the movies, this is real life, but it's just amazing to me how some movies play out so well that it's almost like life imitating fiction, imitating life. Well, there is a movie. I suggest if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Now, it's a horrible movie, to be very frank. I mean, horrible content in it, but it's the best example I can give you of a 4D chess as it relates to a incident in a court case like we're talking about in this. And it's a movie it kind of centers around Dustin Hoffman's character. He was an alcoholic attorney that was terrible, and he is brought in a 4D chess game to be an attorney and just basically be like a puppet. And he's had everything written out for him to say, and it's already pre-planned. And I believe that's going to be the role that Roche is going to play in this. And that movie, if you haven't seen it, is called Sleepers. And it's, I believe it was in the 90s, but it starred Brad Pitt, Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro, Jason Patrick, but it also had some other very interesting characters in this movie. And the movie's premise was 4D chess in a court case. And it centers around four individuals, Brad Pitt, Jason Patrick, and I can't remember these actors' names, but they were all grown at this point, but it goes back to their childhood, and they were all four childhood friends. And they got in trouble and was sent to a reformatory. At that reformatory, these four childhood friends were preyed upon by a pedo guy that was played by Footloose here, Kevin Bacon. And when they grew up, they all went to different aspects of life. One of them became a prosecuting attorney. That was Brad Pitt's character. One of them became a journalist. The other two went into organized crime and became organized crime hitmen for one of the organized crime gangs. And one night, while the two hitmen were in a restaurant, they noticed the guy that used to abuse them when they were kids sitting there having dinner. So naturally, they walk over and they take him out. Well, when they're arrested for it, their buddy that nobody now knows that they were friends when they were kids, he requests the case because he's going to finish off this whole thing by making sure that his buddies don't go to jail for taking out the guy that abused them. So him and his journalism friend actually get together and they plan out a 4D chess game. And the way they do that is they hire him, an old attorney that is an alcoholic and is terrible. And he literally Brad Pitt writes out every word that this guy is supposed to say in court to assure that he gets them acquitted, and he fails as the prosecutor in the case. I mean, it's a really interesting movie if you want to apply it to a situation like this, because I believe this is already all planned out. They didn't know who the attorney that Judge Hippler was going to appoint was, but you can almost guarantee they've got everything laid out for that attorney to say to gain the post-conviction relief. And then once that's done, he will go away. His only role in this is going to be for post-conviction relief, not the trial. That's one thing everybody has to understand. But if you haven't seen this movie and you can't apply it to this situation, I suggest go and watch it. It is literally life imitating art, imitating life, in my opinion. If you haven't seen that movie, I suggest watch it, even though it's a hard movie to watch because there's some serious subjects in there. But I think it literally lays out almost exactly what we're seeing taking place here. And everything that's supposed to have happened between the time this post-conviction relief was filed up until this very point seems to be getting checked off like a little checklist. So the next thing we'll see is the additional filing from the public defender that apparently Ann Taylor is very familiar with, that will file an addendum, and you can bet it's already planned out. And if that addendum that's filed has to do with mental state at the time, then you'll know Pav is right on. Then an evidentiary hearing should be set by the judge, and then we'll just sit back and watch everything play out from there. So I find this whole process to be fascinating. But let me know your thoughts. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, your thoughts, your criticisms. Till next time, Pavarotti's out.